Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. And today we're taking a look at Maketoys Gundog, specifically the animation color variant. Main differences, from what I understand, between this and the toy-centric color version is the green is a much lighter shade, whereas on the toy one it's like a really, really dark, deep kind of pine tree green. And you've got metallic silver paint, whereas the toy version had, I think, is chrome. So we are looking at the animation version because, quite frankly, I just wasn't a fan of the really dark green and chrome motif. Just didn't do it for me. I definitely prefer the lighter green and metallic silver look here. And it's Hound. Hound is a Jeep. This is a Jeep, therefore this is Hound. Video over. We're done. Have a good one. But no, I mean, I don't have a huge connection to Hound, as with a lot of G1-centric characters. I just don't have that connection. I never owned a Hound when I was growing up. The first Hound figure I ever got my hands on, I believe, was actually the Age of Extinction version. So I'm not really a Hound fanboy. That said, this is still pretty cool. I've got my issues with it, which I'll get into more in robot mode, but, you know, it's cool for what it is. I'm actually going to pop these off real quick. I mostly just have these on because this is going to be showing up again in his robot mode. But I like that the weapons can store on the back. And he does have one other gun that could store back there, but I don't use that gun, so I just have these. And his Jeep mode is convincingly a Jeep. I do appreciate that you've got seats and a steering wheel, but at the same time it's a Jeep, so it's kind of got to be open, and I can understand the desire to put that stuff in there. I really appreciate how he transforms, too. Like, we'll see it in the actual transformation, but I love that the floor of the Jeep is actually his robot mode arms, like accordioned out. That's really interesting. I will say, getting him into Jeep mode, you have to make sure certain things are done in very specific ways. It's less fiddly than some of the other actually, widely considered fiddly figures that I have, like, say, Bad Cube's War Dog, but more fiddly than I was expecting. Like, for example, just for this video, trying to get him into his Jeep mode, I could not get this side to sit flush. Like, it's doing it much better now, and that side too. But before, it was like it kept sticking up, and I couldn't figure out why, and it turns out I had to detransform a lot of it just to shift his shoulder around a little bit, because he's got multiple shoulder joints. And yeah, it's just a little finicky. But what you get is definitely a Jeep. I don't know enough about Jeeps to actually say how accurate this is to any kind of specific Jeep model, but it definitely looks like a Jeep. And I can appreciate that. I kind of also like how different elements from the, elements from the robot mode, but also just things that show up in Jeep mode. I'm talking myself into a circle. Basically, I appreciate how things line up here to create kind of a wheel well, which is squared off, whereas the one back here is round. So that's a bit of a contrast. I'm not sure if that's accurate. I don't really care. It's just a thing that kind of sets it apart in that regard. But I appreciate the fact that there are 3 different segments here that all end up in very different places in the robot mode. And some nice detailing throughout, a little bit on the sides there with like the rivets and the gas cap. Is there a gas cap on the other side? There is! Cool. Always weird when they do that. Got some tail lights, which are nice. I like the red on there. And the Captain America shield. Get this out of the way here. Come on. Now, I can appreciate the gas can and the spare tire. The thing with the spare tire that's a little weird to me is, like, okay, yes, it's a spare tire, but why does it have a star design on it when the other tires don't? They're just regular wheels. Seems a bit weird, but then I guess this is just the thing that's supposed to be holding the tire rather than the actual wheel itself, so I guess that can work. And just fold these in to clean this up a bit so we can take a bit more of a look at the back. Some nice little details in the bumper there. And I like the silver on the rims there. A little bit of yellow detailing there, and some detailing on the inside, which you can't, like, it's not really meant for the Jeep, I don't think. But I can appreciate that they have a little steering wheel and a console. And the seats, of course, that definitely stand out well. Some nice molding on the inside of the back of the Jeep there. And then, of course, the front, which is the, the entire focus of both the Jeep and the robot mode. I don't dislike the silver for the headlights, but I don't necessarily think it makes sense. Like, you know, they're headlights. I feel like maybe like a gray with like a silver ring on the outside would work better, but it looks fine, and the color contrast is nice with the silver and the green and the yellows, which you also have in there. That weird kind of winch slash... I think that's the machine they used to make everlasting gobstoppers. Yeah, overall, Gundog's Jeep mode does look pretty cool, and I like the little detail of the little steps underneath the sides there for people to potentially like step onto as they get into the Jeep. It's a silly little thing, but I like it. It's a fun little detail. And getting to the size comparisons real quick, you can see that he's bigger than a deluxe, current-ish deluxe in terms of the vehicle mode, but still relatively compact, which isn't bad. I think it's pretty cool, actually. But yeah, he's definitely bigger than this, but not by a whole heck of a lot. I'd say he's sort of in the vague, nebulous neighborhood of Voyager class, somewhere around there. Anyway, let's get on to that robot mode transformation. Now, this, I will say, is definitely an easier trip going from Jeep to robot because you don't have to make sure a bunch of little things all line up at once. But it's an interesting one. If you're not familiar with this transformation, I'd say pay attention to the arms, because that's a pretty cool trick. And here's Gundog in his robot mode, and this looks pretty darn good. I do have my issues with it, which I'll talk about in a minute, but overall, definitely looks nice. I like the color layout, how you've got these large chunks of green, but they're all broken up nicely with like yellows and dark grays, and in this case, kind of a dark grayish blue. And the entire front of a Jeep is his chest, which, as I understand it, is pretty on brand for G1 Hound. And real quick, I'm just going to slap these on here, so just turn him around, because there are some pegs back here, and we'll line this up, which is difficult to do with camera when I have no depth perception. Is that the one? Yeah, that'll work. And so it can be the bigger peg, I think. That's not going to work. Okay. So instead, I guess I'll just peg this onto his forearm and be done with it. Come on. No depth perception whatsoever. There we go. And just because I don't care about the asymmetry, I actually kind of dig it. Just slap that on his foot. There we go. Now we've got Hound all roboted up with his tire and gas can. And yeah, he is cool. I actually have had my eye on this guy for a while, and my priorities weren't quite at the point where I was ready to pay this guy's price when he was still available readily. And then by the time I was ready to pull the trigger on him, he was no longer available anywhere. So that kind of sucked. But I was able to get my hands on him, obviously, through a pretty timely eBay listing. And yeah, he's, like I said, pretty cool. His proportions are a little bit strange. Like, he's got these sort of weedy little arms and then these long, chunky legs, which doesn't necessarily bother me. But what's interesting is in Vangelis' video, he was talking about how he wasn't really into the placement of the elbow joint because it made, kind of made the forearms look huge and the biceps look tiny. I didn't think I was going to agree with him after getting this figure in hand, but yeah, no, I totally agree with him. Also, I kind of feel like even though these arms are proportionally fine, I still feel like they come across as stumpy. And I don't know if it's the coloring or the shape or the elbow joint or a combination of all those things, but his arms kind of feel stumpy to me. And that's a little bit distracting sometimes. Sorry. It's a weird thing for me to be caught up on, but yeah, his arms just seem stumpy. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to the detailing. You can see there's a lot of the same detailing from the Jeep. I kind of like how the bumpers fold up and then these bits fold over those, kind of creating a layered effect. That's pretty cool. And I like that you have the option for the asymmetrical look with the gas can there, which you could stick somewhere else, but I kind of like the very slight asymmetry that it gives you. And there's some nice, simple little techie kind of detail with the gunmetal lines and stuff there for the shins, which was all under the Jeep. And the little footrest things fold away into the thighs, kind of making them pointless. Like, it was, I mean, not pointless, but it's like a nice detail to have, but it seems kind of like an unnecessary extravagance in terms of engineering and, I guess, parts count. Like, these could have just been smooth thighs and it wouldn't have really made a difference. I don't think anyone would have noticed the lack of little footstep things, but fine, whatever. And then got the forearms, which I love how these accordion up. I think it's just a neat transforming trick. And the chest, which, as I said, is just a Jeep. But I like how the wheel well bits come up a little bit, give him like a higher looking shoulder, which he does have. I also really like how the front wheels tuck into his chest. It fills in the chest a bit, and yeah, it's kind of strange looking from the back, but I still actually kind of appreciate it because it's not a hollow void. It's, there's stuff there. This thing's a bit loose, but I don't really care, and I could tighten it if I wanted to. And also you've got this bit that doesn't really do anything, just kind of flaps up and down. I also wish that this panel could fold down. I mean, this toy does a lot, and I'm just nitpicking really, but I'm not a huge fan of him having this panel just sitting behind his head. I feel like that could have disappeared, and it would just make him look a little bit better. But then again, I don't know if that's like an accuracy thing or whatever. Still, would have been nice. As for the head, that's Hound's head, as I understand it anyway. It's, big, awkward-looking box with this kind of lip coming out over the top and this little divot around the eyes. And the silver face. Nice blue on the eyes there, too. And he looks a little grumpy, which I think fits. And I'm just now realizing that cut in the side there, realistically, is probably so that the helmet doesn't block his peripheral vision. It's a nice detail, which I think speaks more to the original design than the toy, but I appreciate that. And while we're here, might as well turn him around so that we can bring these in. Because the whole reason why I wanted to show off the accessories for a second in the beginning of the video is because of this. Because I always appreciate this kind of stuff. This just kind of nestles into his back there. Bring that down. And there. That kind of keeps that from flopping around. And it looks cool. Like I said, I dig the asymmetry thing, and I actually have a weird fondness for shoulder launchers for some reason. I don't know. There we go. That's pretty cool. As I've already said, I'm not like the biggest fan of Hound, but I still thought that this figure was cool, and in hand, not blowing me away like I thought it would, but still a very, very solidly done, very nice figure. And he looks pretty cool with some of his stuff attached in various places. It's just those arms coming off as kind of stumpy. I just don't understand why it feels that way to me, but anyway, let's get him straightened up a little bit here and off to the side so that we can do one last bit of size comparisons. Here he is with a more current-ish deluxe again. And you can see he's definitely bigger than... definitely bigger in robot mode than he came off in Jeep mode. Still around Voyager-ish size, but at the same time, he's got way more heft to him. There's some definitive die-cast going on in those legs, which, as I'm looking at him now, yeah, this totally... I think the legs being so chunky is kind of also affecting how the arms come off. I feel like if these were a little bit thinner, or if these were a little bit beefier, it would balance out better. Anyway, that's how he scales there. And because why the heck not? Here he is with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe, and you can see he's a little bit taller than Masterpiece Carbot. And I think that is going to do it for Gundog. So yeah, like I said, he looks good. I like the colors. I like the detailing. There's like just enough smooth spots to kind of pull off the cartoon look, but then there's enough textured detail in places to not make him look too plain. Really, my big issues with this guy, and they're not big issues, but my biggest issues overall with this guy are the fact that things have to be in very specific spots for the transformation to work out well going into the Jeep mode, otherwise things won't quite line up properly. And also the proportions in the limbs. I just wish that those legs were either a little bit skinnier, the arms were a little bit beefier, but can't fix that now. Still a very cool figure. Just, you know, not Maketoys' best work, I don't think. Though it is funny, I recently stumbled upon, I think I was browsing TFW, or maybe it was a Facebook post. Actually, yeah, I think it was a Facebook post. And it showed some Takara Masterpieces, and in that lineup was a Masterpiece Hound. What's funny about that is looking at that and looking at this, the proportions really weren't different. He still had stumpy arms, so even though it bothers me, I guess it's not necessarily an inaccurate thing. So yeah, if it's accuracy you're looking for, I guess the stumpy arms is fine, but I'm not a huge fan. Anyway, what do you all think of Maketoys Gundog? Do any of you have this guy already? Have you found little tricks for getting him transformed easier than just micromanaging little bits as he goes into Jeep mode? Do you have a preference for this versus the toy-centric color scheme, which, as I said, is like a much darker, deeper green with chrome instead of the lighter green with silver? Have you seen the pictures of Masterpiece Hound that were teased? And if so, what do you think? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.